Hi, everyone. Today, I want to talk about something that has the power to transform not only our relationships, but the very way we experience being human. We live in a world that is constantly speeding up, constantly demanding more, constantly disconnecting us from each other in ways that we don't even realize. And yet, what we crave the most, what every single one of us longs for, is connection. But connection is not built on just being around people or offering kind words from a distance. It's built when we allow ourselves to sit in the dark with someone and say, I see you, I'm with you, and you're not alone. That is empathy. Too often we confuse empathy with sympathy, and that confusion costs us opportunities for deep, meaningful connection. So today I want to walk you through what makes empathy different, why sympathy can sometimes hurt more than it helps, and how understanding the true power of connection can change your life, your relationships, and even the way you lead. Sympathy drives separation. Empathy builds bridges. Sympathy often sounds like, oh no, poor you, or that must be so hard. But at least it creates distance. It implies hierarchy. You're over there and I'm over here feeling sorry for you. Empathy, however, says, I've been there. I may not know exactly how you feel, but I know pain. Let me crawl down into the dark with you. It doesn't fix, it doesn't judge, it joins. Empathy requires vulnerability. You can't practice empathy without being willing to feel your own pain. Empathy is a vulnerable choice. It's saying, I'm willing to connect with something in myself that knows what you're going through. That's why it's hard. It's not about having the right words. It's about having the courage to be with someone in their suffering without needing to change it. Connection is a sacred space. True connection doesn't happen by accident. It happens when we hold space for each other. Empathy invites us to stand inside that sacred space with someone else, shoulder to shoulder, heart to heart. It's sacred because it honors another person's humanity without trying to take away their experience or erase their pain. Sympathy often shames without intention. When we offer sympathy, we might be trying to be kind, but we risk making the other person feel pitied or less than. And when someone is in pain, pity feels like judgment, even if it's dressed in kindness. Empathy instead allows someone to still belong even in their hardest moment. It says, you are still worthy, you are still whole, even now. Empathy fuels connection. Connection fuels healing. Empathy doesn't just make us feel good, it heals us. Because when we feel seen, heard, and understood, something in us settles, the nervous system calms, the shame loosens, the fear softens. Empathy is not fluffy. It is not weak. It is a bold, powerful act of relational courage. It's what real healing looks like. The power of connection is rooted in shared humanity. At the core of connection is the truth that we are wired to belong. Empathy reminds us that we are not alone in our struggles, that we are not broken. That being human means being imperfect, and that is where our beauty lives. The true power of connection lies in being seen exactly as we are and still being embraced. That kind of connection, it changes lives, it saves lives. Sympathy drives separation while empathy builds bridges, and this difference is subtle but deeply important when it comes to understanding human connection. Sympathy is often mistaken for empathy because both show concern, but the way they show it and the impact they have are completely different. When someone is going through a hard time and we respond with sympathy, we are essentially saying, I see you are hurting and I feel sorry for you, but from a safe distance. Sympathy is that emotional arm's length where we acknowledge the pain, but do not engage with, like looking down at someone in a dark hole and saying, oh, that must be terrible. I hope you feel better soon. Even if well-intentioned sympathy creates emotional separation between us and the person who is struggling, Empathy, on the other hand, builds a bridge across that separation. Empathy is not just recognizing that someone is in pain, it is choosing to feel with them. It is about climbing down into that emotional hole and sitting beside them, not with answers, not with judgment, not with advice, but with presence. Empathy says, I may not know exactly what you're feeling, but I'm here with you in it. It means being brave enough to connect with something in ourselves that understands fear, grief, shame, or loneliness, and using that understanding to hold space for another person. That act alone makes empathy one of the most courageous and generous expressions of love and humanity. Sympathy unintentionally can sound dismissive even when we don't mean it that way. Saying things like, at least it's not worse, or everything happens for a reason, might be meant to comfort, but they often shut the other person down. They signal that we are not ready to stay with their discomfort. They send the message that we want to fix their pain rather than honor it. Empathy does the opposite. It allows people to stay in their pain without being rushed or minimized. It offers validation rather than solutions, and that validation can be more healing than any advice. When we respond with empathy, we create a safe emotional space where people can feel seen, heard, and valued. That connection builds trust and fosters intimacy because the person knows they don't have to filter their emotions. They don't have to pretend to be okay. They can show up as they are and be accepted. That kind of connection is rare and powerful. It's the foundation of meaningful relationships, whether in families, friendships, teams, or communities. So while sympathy may come more naturally and feel safer, it is empathy that truly connects us. It requires more of us, but it also offers more in return. By choosing empathy, we choose to bridge the gap between ourselves and others, to meet people where they are, and to remind them they are not alone. That is not only the essence of empathy, but also the beginning of real authentic connection. Empathy requires vulnerability, and this is one of the main reasons why it is so difficult for many of us to practice it consistently. Vulnerability is not weakness, although we often treat it as something to avoid or hide. It is in fact the foundation of empathy and connection. When we choose to be empathetic, we are choosing to open ourselves up to someone else's pain. And that means we have to be willing to touch our own. We cannot offer true empathy to someone if we are unwilling to feel the difficult emotions they are feeling, because empathy is not about fixing someone else's discomfort. It is about being willing to sit with it and share in it. Think about the times when someone has come to you in deep pain. Maybe they have experienced a loss or are going through a personal crisis. And in that moment, there is a part of us that wants to make it better. We want to say something encouraging or find a silver lining. We want to pull them out of the darkness. But the truth is, offering empathy in that moment means we are willing to enter the darkness with them. And that takes, it means putting aside our instinct to fix or rescue, and instead saying, I don't know what to say right now, but I'm here with you and I'm not going anywhere. That moment is deeply vulnerable because it exposes our own fears and discomfort. It forces us to confront our own emotional wounds, our own experiences of loss or fear or helplessness. And for many of us, those feelings are not ones we are used to allowing space for. We have learned to armor up, to stay strong, to push through. But empathy requires the exact opposite. It asks us to remove the armor, to lean into the discomfort, and to trust that simply being present with someone else's pain is enough. That is a radical act in a world that often tells us we need to be problem solvers and strong performers. Vulnerability and empathy also means we are taking a risk that what we offer might not be received the way we intend, a risk that our presence might feel inadequate, a risk that we will be reminded of our own emotional wounds, and yet it is in that risk that connection becomes possible. People do not need us to be perfect or to have all the right. words. They need us to be real, to be human, to be willing to say, I don't have the answers, but I will sit here with you as long as you need me to. When we allow ourselves to be vulnerable enough to feel with others rather than just for them, we step into the most authentic kind of connection. It's not always easy, and it certainly is not comfortable, but it is real and it is powerful. Vulnerability is not a sign of weakness. It is a sign of empathy and the deepest form of strength, because it shows we are willing to be fully human with someone else, right when they need it most. Connect is a sacred space, and that space is only created when we allow ourselves to truly be with another person, without judgment, without trying to fix them, and without needing to make the moment more comfortable for ourselves. This kind of connection doesn't happen by accident. It requires intention and presence. It demands that we slow down and give our full attention to the person in front of us, not just with our ears, but with our hearts. When someone is in pain or struggling, they are not looking for quick solution, empty reassurances. They are looking for someone who will honor their experience and simply be there with them in it. Sacred space means creating an emotional environment where someone can show up as their most raw, real, and unfiltered self and still feel accepted. It's where they don't have to explain or justify their emotions. They can just be. When we hold space for someone like that, we're telling them your experience matters, your story matters, and those messages are powerful because they counteract the shame that often creeps in during moments of struggle. Shame tells us we're broken. Shame tells us we're not good enough. But connection says you are seen, you are worthy, and you are not alone. Empathy is the foundation of that sacred connection, because it's not about doing something for the other person, it's about being with them. It's not about changing their experience, it's about honoring it. That can feel counterintuitive, especially in a culture that values action and problem solving. But sometimes the most healing thing we can do for someone is not to say anything at all, just to be a steady presence that says, I'm here and I care. That kind of silence is not empty, it's full of meaning. It's a silence that listens, that holds, and that comforts. Creating a sacred space through connection also requires that we set aside our own discomfort. It's easy to want to rush through someone else's pain because it triggers something in us. Maybe it reminds us of our own hurt, or maybe it makes us feel helpless, but empathy asks us to put that aside, to stay focused on the person in front of us, and to meet them where they are, not where we wish they were. That level of presence is rare and beautiful, and it is what allows people to feel truly connected. When we talk about the sacredness of connection, we are really talking about what it means to be fully human with one another. We are talking about the kind of relationships that don't just skim the surface, but dive deep into trust, authenticity, and compassion. These are the moments that stay with us, the moments when someone sat with us in our grief or confusion or fear and reminded us through their presence that we are not alone. That is what makes connection sacred. It is not grand gestures or perfect words. It is the quiet, powerful act of saying, I see you, and I'm staying here with you. Sympathy often shames without intention, and that's one of the reasons it can be so harmful, even when it's coming from a place of love or kindness. Most of us don't mean to make someone feel small when we respond with sympathy. We're just trying to be supportive, the best way we know how. But the truth is, sympathy creates emotional distance, and that distance can make the person who is already struggling feel even more isolated. With sympathy, we unintentionally create a divide between ourselves and the person in pain, and in that divide, it becomes easy for shame to grow. Sympathy sounds like poor you, or at least it's not worse, or I know someone who had it harder. And while those words might be meant to bring comfort, usually do the opposite. What they often communicate is, "This is uncomfortable for me, so I'm going to try to make it go away." And when someone is hurting, what they need more than anything is for their experience to be acknowledged, not minimized. They need to feel that their pain is real, that it matters, and that they're not being judged for it. Sympathy rarely gives that kind of validation because it's more about our response than their reality. Another way sympathy shames is by placing the person in pain in a one-down position. It can feel like pity, and pity says, "I feel sorry for you because you're weaker or less fortunate or somehow broken." No one wants to feel pitied because pity carries a subtle message of superiority. It puts the person offering sympathy in the position of someone who is okay, and the person receiving it in the position of someone who is not. That kind of dynamic doesn't invite connection. It creates disconnect. It reinforces the idea that you're different, you're not like me, and that's where shame sneaks in. Empathy, on the other hand, says, "I might not have experienced exactly what you're going through, but I have felt pain and fear and heartbreak too." It says, "You're not alone in this because I'm willing to step into it with you." Empathy doesn't judge or compare, it simply honors the emotion that's there. And by doing that, it makes space for healing instead of shame. It tells the person they're still whole, even in their brokenness. And that message is powerful. We don't need to be perfect to offer empathy. We just need to be willing to be present without trying to control the moment. That means resisting the urge to give advice or look on the bright side, and instead just listening, holding eye contact, sitting in silence, offering a gentle touch. All of these things communicate, "I'm here and I." When we replace sympathy with empathy, we replace shame with dignity, and we build a connection that can truly support someone through their pain. That's the kind of support people remember, the kind that stays with them long after the pain has passed. Empathy fuels connection, and connection fuels healing. And this is not just a comforting idea. It is a truth backed by both science and human experience. When we practice empathy, we are doing far more than offering a kind gesture. We are engaging in a deeply powerful act that can change the way someone feels about themselves, their pain, and their place in the world. Empathy has the power to calm the nervous system, reduce feelings of isolation, help people feel grounded again. Because being truly seen and heard when we are hurting is one of the most healing experiences we can have as human beings. Pain can be incredibly isolating, and when people are struggling, they often begin to believe that no one could possibly understand them, or their emotions are too much, or that they are somehow broken. This is the voice of shame, and it thrives in silence and secrecy. What empathy does is shine a gentle light into that darkness and say, "I'm here with you. I don't have to fix you. I don't have to rescue you. I just have to sit beside you and let you know that you are not alone." And in that moment, the walls that shame has built begin to crack, because empathy reminds us that we are not separate. We are not too much. We are simply human. When someone is met with empathy, they feel emotionally held, and this emotional safety is what allows healing to begin. The body softens, the mind calms, and the person starts to breathe a little easier because they no longer have to carry their pain in silence. That act of being witnessed without judgment allows people to process what they're going through in a healthier way. It lets them speak their truth, cry their tears, and release what they've been holding in. Empathy doesn't erase the pain, but it makes it bearable. It makes it something we don't have to walk through alone. On a relational level, empathy builds trust. When someone feels that we're not just hearing their words, but actually feeling with them, a bond is created, and that bond can become the foundation of deep and lasting connection. Whether it's between partners, friends, family members, or colleagues,
Empathy tells the other person, I value your experience, I respect your emotions, and I am here for you. That message is transformative because it says, I accept you as you are, even in your hardest moment. Empathy also empowers people to start healing within themselves. When we are met with empathy, we start to learn how to give that same compassion to ourselves. We begin to believe that we are worthy of love and understanding even when we are struggling. This internal shift is what turns connection into healing, because it nurtures self-compassion and resilience. In a world that often pushes us to be strong and independent, empathy gives us permission to be human. It teaches us that strength is not about going it alone, but about being brave enough to let others in. And when we do that, when we allow connection to happen, healing follows, not just for the person in pain, but for everyone involved. The power of connection is rooted in shared humanity, and truth lies at the heart of every meaningful relationship, every act of compassion, and every moment of real understanding. At our core, we are all human beings, navigating life with the same basic needs: the need to be seen, the need to be heard, and the need to feel that we belong. When we connect with someone through empathy, we are not just responding to their emotions, we are reaching across the divide of individual experience to say, I see myself in you, and I know what it means to hurt, to hope, to fear, and to love. This shared humanity is what binds us together and what makes true connection possible. So often we go through life feeling like we are alone in our struggle. We wear masks, we hide our pain, and we pretend that everything is fine because we think that vulnerability will make us seem weak or unworthy. But the truth is, vulnerability is what makes us real. It is what allows others to see who we truly are, and when someone responds to our vulnerability with empathy, it sends a powerful message that says, you are not alone in this. I've been there too. That message doesn't require us to have lived the exact same experience. It simply asks us to recognize the feelings underneath the story and to honor them. Shared humanity means we don't have to fix each other. We don't have to rescue each other. We just have to show up and be willing to feel with each other. It means putting aside our assumptions and judgments and instead choosing to listen with an open heart. It means understanding that behind every angry word, every silent tear, and every act of frustration, there is usually a deeper emotion, a story, a pain that wants to be acknowledged. When we connect with that part of someone's experience, we create space for healing and for growth. Empathy is the bridge that connects us across difference. It reminds us that no matter how different our lives might look on the outside, we are more alike than we are different. We all know what it means to be afraid, to feel lost, to doubt ourselves, or to long for acceptance. When we recognize these universal emotions in someone else, we begin to break down the walls that divide us. We begin to build relationships that are rooted not in perfection or performance, but in authenticity and compassion. The true power of connection is that it allows us to come as we are and still feel love. It teaches us that we don't have to be flawless to be worthy, that we don't have to hide our pain to be accepted. In a world that often tells us to prove ourselves, to earn love, and to compete for worthiness, connection tells us to rest, to be seen, and to belong just as we are. And that is what makes it so powerful. It is not about doing more or being more. It is about remembering that we are already enough and letting that truth bring us closer to one another. So as we move through our lives and relationships, let us choose the brave path of empathy over the quick comfort of sympathy. Let us remember that connection is not about having the right words or fixing someone's pain, but about standing beside them in it with an open heart and a willing spirit, because when we lead with empathy, we create spaces where healing can happen, where shame dissolves, and where love grows deeper. The real power lies not in changing each other, but in being present for each other. And in that sacred presence, we rediscover what it truly means to be human together. So the next time someone you love is struggling, don't reach for a silver lining. Don't try to make it better. Just be there. Look them in the eyes and say, I don't know what to say, but I'm so glad you told me. Because in that moment, you're not offering a solution. You're offering yourself, and that, my friends, is the most powerful gift you can give. Let's stop reaching for perfection and start reaching for connection. Let's choose empathy. Let's build a world where no one has to suffer alone.